Yo guys, welcome back to the channel, back with another GoPro tutorial video. And this is quite a special one today because I'm actually going to be sharing a video that's from inside my online GoPro video course, which there'll be a link in the description below if you want to check that out. But this is all going to be about the basics of setting up your camera to get the shots you want, because I know from experience that setting up these cameras, a lot of people get them out of the box and they just go on all the auto modes. They don't really know what all the settings do inside the camera and what they are for and how they impact the videos they capture. What you're going to see in a second is a walkthrough of how to set your camera up, beginner friendly, what every single setting does so you can start shooting better videos today.
In this video, we're going to talk about how to get the most out of your GoPro camera through video settings. So once you're inside the camera, you're inside the video mode, you'll notice that there is a number of different settings that you can play with. We're going to go through every single one of the settings now, and I'm going to tell you exactly what it does, what its function is, and how you need to set it up. So first of all, we'll jump in and talk about resolution. So this is basically the quality of your shot. So obviously the higher the number, the higher the resolution, say, the better quality of video you're going to be able to shoot. Now there is a caveat with this, because it doesn't necessarily mean that your videos are going to be better if you shoot in GoPro's highest setting. I'll explain why in a second. But on this GoPro Hero 9 and some of the earlier models, you have a number of different resolutions to choose from, anywhere from 720, 1080, 440, 2.7K, 4K, and even on this GoPro now you can film in 5K, which is crazy. So in this course we're going to focus specifically on the two main resolutions that get talked about the most. So we've got 1080 and we've got 4K. Both offer incredible quality to your video, but they offer a slightly different outcome depending on what you want to shoot. For the majority of the YouTube videos and production videos that I've made in the past, we've used a range of 1080 and 4K footage. For 95% of the time, if it's a YouTube video I'm making, it will generally be shot on 1080 instead of 4K. If you're working with a client or you want a higher quality outcome, so say if you're doing something very cinematic, you are doing something that is like it's been requested to be recorded in 4K, then you will shoot in the higher resolution, which is 4K. But the thing that you need to remember with that is 1080 versus 4K, the 4K file size is almost 4 times the size of a 1080 file size, which also means it takes up probably 4 times the amount of battery life to process that video clip, and it also takes up more energy and more space on your card because it's just a bigger file. And when you actually upload it to, say, YouTube or to Instagram, which is what probably you may be wanting to do, you may be wanting to improve your GoPro videos for YouTube videos or for Instagram posts or stories. When you're uploading, as you'll find later on, to these social media platforms, they actually compress your videos to start with anyway. So it doesn't really make sense, in my opinion, to shoot with a very high quality. If we're out mountain biking, say, for a very long time, for 7-8 hours in a day, and I'm doing a lot of videoing, I want to make sure that my battery life is going to last as long as possible while still getting the highest video quality as possible. So that's primarily why I would recommend you think about shooting in 1080 rather than 4K for now, or for the majority of the time, because the camera doesn't take as much energy to process those videos and you don't use as much space upon your card. So therefore you can shoot for longer, you've still got really good high quality footage, and the outcome is still pretty much near as damn it the same as 4K. Only the eagle eye out there would spot whether you're shooting in 4K or 1080. If we talk a little bit on 5K, which is GoPro's crazy high quality setting, to view a 5K footage video when you share it to the internet, you're going to have a 5K television or a screen, which most people don't have. Most people are going to be watching your videos on their smartphone or on their MacBooks or computers. So for me, 1080 or 4K is probably the way that you should be going. The next setting we're going to talk about is frame rate, and frame rate is basically the number of images that your camera captures every single second. And what it does is it takes these sequences of photos and it stitches them together. This is all done inside the camera to create that aspect of motion. So if you imagine the more pictures that your camera takes every second, that means it's capturing even more data. And what that enables you to do later on is, if you want to record, say, really slow-mo footage, then you would choose a higher frame rate, because then when you slow it down, you'll still have that really smooth, buttery feel of motion. If you want to get across that maybe speed aspect in your footage, which is what I do a lot with my videos, Because we do a lot of mountain biking and I want to get that speed and slightly blurred effect coming across in my videos, I actually use a slightly lower frame rate of maybe 24, 25 frames a second or even 30 frames a second, because to me that gives across that most realistic feel of speed, and that's what I want to do. I want to bring people into my videos and let them experience how it actually felt when I was riding down that trail or doing whatever adventurous thing I was doing. In simple terms, the higher your frame rate, the smoother your footage will be. And on these GoPro cameras, you have a number of options to choose from. You have 24 frames a second, 30 frames a second, 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, and 240 frames a second. For me, if I was looking to shoot speed, so I was looking to shoot like adventure sports or extreme sports and I wanted that blur effect, I would be looking to shoot either 24 frames a second or 30. If, for example, though, later on I knew I wanted to slow that footage down to really emphasize something or just to make a cool slow-mo video, I'd look to be shooting in either 60, 120, or even 240 frames a second, just so I could really slow things down and still keep that really high quality, buttery smooth motion in my videos. Next setting is field of view. So field of view is basically the amount of image or shot that your end viewer is going to see when they watch your videos. So in this GoPro Hero 9 and actually earlier models, so the 6, 7, and 8, you have a number of different field of views to choose from. We have narrow, we have linear, we have wide, and we have super view. So now the question becomes, okay, so which field of view should you choose? Well, I'd say that entirely depends on where you are shooting and what kind of feel you want to come across in your videos. So again, if I was out mountain biking and I was filming some really cool point of view stuff, so I had the camera mounted to my chin, so on my helmet under there, or under my peak, or even on my chest, I want the viewer or the watcher to experience what I was feeling. And I want to get as much detail and image going on there in my footage. So I would opt to use a super view mode, which is, I think off the top of my head, it's about 16 to 20 millimeters in width on the field of view settings. That's a fairly wide shot, so you can imagine the camera is capturing a lot of things going on. And that's what I want to come across. If, for example, though, I was just shooting like travel vlogs and doing selfie stuff, walking around like this, talking to the camera, I probably would opt for a slightly narrower field of view. So I would probably go for something like a wide field of view. I think if you overuse super view, it can get a little bit too much for the viewer. And if our goal is to try and keep people watching our videos for longer and creating better videos, I think there is a point where you need to consider changing things up a bit and not using super view too much, because it ever so slightly on the edges of the super view mode, it's slightly fisheyed. So you can imagine it's almost like watching, not from a fishbowl, but like, you understand what I'm saying. So I would opt to use a slightly tighter field of view if you were doing vlogging or anything like where you're talking to the camera. If we drop it down even further and talk about the linear and narrow field of view, these are things that I've been experimenting with quite a bit recently, especially when I'm recording what's known as B-roll footage. So B-roll footage is basically really slow, well, not always slow, but it's cinematic footage that I put and overlay over other clips. So say, for example, I was at a hotel and I wanted to show some cool features of that hotel and really get across like specific aspects to the person watching the video. I would go and film some really cool slow-mo footage in the linear setting, and I would be using a higher frame rate if I was doing that as well. So I'd be using the linear field of view and I'd be increasing that frame rate, so then if I did want to slow the footage down later, I could do, and it would give across that really cool cinematic feel in the video. Now don't panic, I know we've been talking a lot about all these different settings and stuff. Do remember that below this video there will be a link to grab a video cheat sheet I've put together, which is basically something you can print off or save to your phone that has all these different settings just on a chart, so you can literally look at where you're shooting and then what settings you need to plug into your camera. So the next setting we're going to talk about is the camera stability, which is a big thing in these GoPros, and they've come a long way from the GoPro, the original GoPro, to the Hero 9 now, which is literally, it's almost like replace the need for a gimbal almost, because the hyper smooth and the hyper smooth boost setting in this camera is incredibly stable. Like, I could put this in the highest stability setting possible and go out doing some crazy sports or even just running. All this motion you probably would not even see in the camera because it's just so advanced now. In some of the previous models of GoPro, so maybe the Hero 6 and the 7, the 8 has got very good stability in there as well. But for the 6 and the 7, you probably would need like a gimbal to get that really buttery smooth, hyper smooth stability in the camera. But you can actually set this in the Hero 9, you can set this up depending on what level of stability you want. It's not always the best idea just to put the stability at the highest and think, yep, that's how every video should be shot, because that's not the case. If you increase the stability in these cameras and you turn hyper smooth on and you turn boost on, the camera actually reduces the field of view. It crops in, as it's known, to get that smoother, buttery feel, which if I'm filming mountain biking or anything that's got motion and I want to get all that image in a shot, it's not generally the best idea. So sometimes I'll actually just turn boost off, come back a notch and go into the high setting mode. On the other end of the scale though, you might be shooting somewhere where you want to turn hyper smooth on, you want to turn boost on because you want that smooth, crisp footage. So whether you are walking around and you are doing some vlog style stuff, which I would recommend putting hyper smooth on for vlog videos. So when you're talking to the camera, put hyper smooth on, put stability on, because nobody likes watching unstable, shaky footage. It's hard for the viewer to watch, it's hard for you to edit, and it's just not what we want to do. So bear that in mind, some ideas to think about when you are thinking about setting stability up on your camera. So we'll touch briefly on aspect ratio. So aspect ratio is usually displayed, or is displayed as like a fraction, it almost looks like. So you'll either have 4:3 or 16:9. And this is basically the ratio of your shot, basically. Depending on where you are planning to share your videos, which we'll get into later, this is going to be a factor you may want to consider when setting your camera up, because if I was filming a video on my GoPro and I was like, right, I know this video is going to be used on Instagram, I would try and shoot my footage on 4:3, just because the crop and the aspect ratio is much more easy to edit and it looks a lot better on Instagram when you share it to that platform. If, for example, though, I'm creating vlogs that I plan to share on YouTube, I would generally stick to 16:9, just because that is a much more cinematic feel and it suits the YouTube platform much better than it does for Instagram. If you think about Instagram, it is a very much like a portrait style platform, whereas YouTube is generally more of a landscape platform. So those are the general settings of your GoPro camera. They're not all the settings in your camera, but they're the basic settings. Once you get those dialed, we'll jump in the next video and we'll talk about the Pro Tune settings. So this is taking things to the next level again and really fine-tuning those video settings.
So I hope you enjoyed that video and it gave you a bit of a better understanding of how to set your GoPro camera up. If you want to learn more and you want to get access to the complete GoPro video course that I've put together, there's a link in the description below to go and check it out. It's fairly inexpensive, but it'll walk you through everything that I know about how to set your camera up on an advanced level for the Pro Tune settings, how to actually go out and capture better videos, and then how to edit and share them. This is like everything I've learned all into one online course. So go check that out. And if you have any questions, let me know and I'll get back to you.